guys, it's Seanie B. We're back from the break, and we're going to talk about episode 9 of season 4 called The Shape of Things to Come. And in my opinion, definitely the best episode since The Constant of this season, and one of my favorites of the entire show. And in case you don't know, I did post a Smoke Monster video a little bit less than a week ago, so if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to check it out. You might find something out you didn't know about, although it doesn't cover this episode. And we do find out some more stuff about the monster, which I'll talk about later in this episode. So like I said, the name of the episode was The Shape of Things to Come, meaning things that happened in this episode would pave the way for things that happen in the future. A lot of things that we already know will happen through the flash forwards. Like Jack is seen popping pills, as we know that's what he does big time in the future. We find out why and how Saeed starts working for Ben. Dan confirms they're not there to rescue the Losties, and Ben watches his daughter die, which causes him to go ballistic. So the title has a lot to do with what will happen, and I'll talk more about it at the end of this recap. Okay, so we start at Jack's beach. Jack says he has a stomach bug, so he takes some antibiotics. Looks a lot like penicillin. Now look at this is pretty weird. Jack has a tattoo in this frame, as you can see, but not in this one. Not sure what that's all about. I think Jack definitely knows that he has appendicitis. Just look how he lies to Kate about the drugs he's taken inside the tent. You don't take antibiotics for a stomach bug, only infections. I think he's either just in denial or he's waiting to figure out what he's going to do next. Then they hear Vincent barking and Bernard yelling, and it turns out they find Doc Ray dead in the water. His throat is slit and the scar on his cheek has been replaced by a freshly stitched cut in the same spot. Sawyer, Hurley, and Locke are playing Risk, and Hurley says Australia is the key to the whole game. And even though this is true, that Australia is one of the best to control in Risk, I'm pretty sure, like you probably thought too, that the writers had some deeper meaning in mind when coming up with the line. It turns out the mercenaries were the ones who shot Carl and Rousseau, even though we still aren't 100% sure if they're dead. Kimi, he leads Alex to the sonic fence and makes her shut it down. 1622. The 3.5 men are still playing Risk, and the phone rings once the fence is shut down. A voice recording on the phone says code 14J. Ben's playing the piano and Locke asks what the code means, and Ben freaks out and says, they're here. The next scene is Ben time skipping to the middle of the Sahara desert, shaking. It reminds me a lot of when Jack wakes up in the middle of the jungle in the pilot. He's wearing a parka, so one idea is that he just came from some frozen tundra. He was also confused at first as to where he was, so maybe when he time skipped he wasn't sure where he would be going and just wanted to be prepared. The parka also has the name Haloax on it. If you remember, Haloax is one of the names of the Asian guy from the Orientation films. Remember in the Orientation films, Haloax has a prosthetic arm in one of them, and in the others he has his regular arm. Well, they make a point of showing here how Ben has his arm cut, so who knows, maybe this has something to do with how Haloax lost his arm to begin with. Or it could be that just Ben was in a fight and had to get out of there ASAP. We also see a new Dharma logo. I think it's pretty safe to assume that it's the Orchid Station logo. The middle logos looks like a stamen of an orchid, or it could even be like a time vortex. And also the producers wanted to mention that although this isn't the exact same spot where C.S. Lewis found the polar bear skeleton in Tunisia, it's in the same region, and it's not a coincidence. Then two guys come riding up on horseback to Ben, and they start to have a conversation in Arabic, and here it is translated. One of the writers comments about how the place was empty before, then the other one says, yeah, it was. Look, there are no footprints. So the other says, then where did he come from? Did he fall from the sky? And then Ben asks in Arabic if they speak Arabic. After they search him, he pulls out a beating stick, and one of the guys asks in Arabic, what is this? And Ben goes Rambo and owns the two guys. Ben covers up his cut arm and rides away. Back at the barracks, they're getting ready for the attack, and Sawyer goes to find Claire. Ben holds Locke back and says, it's very important for you to survive this, John. We go to Jack's camp, and Jack asks Dan, when was the last time you saw him? Referring to Doc Ray. And Dan replies, when is kind of a relative term, as we already know. Ben, Locke, and Hurley are inside Ben's house preparing for the attack. Sawyer goes outside, and the guy next to him gets shot, and then another, and then another. I thought it was pretty funny how the last guy had a red shirt. If you remember back in season 1, Boone was talking to Locke about Star Trek and how whenever Captain Kirk would take people down to a planet, all the people that died had red shirts. And then Locke said, oh, he must have been a pretty bad captain then. It seems like a lot of people that die on the island are wearing red shirts. Sawyer then goes Neo mode and dodges all the bullets, and he thinks that Claire's in one of the houses when one of the mercenaries shoots an RPG at it and the house explodes. Ben goes to Tunisia and asks for a room. The lady asks if this is his first time in Tunisia. He grins and says, no, but it's been a while. He says his name is Dean Moriarty, and that he's a preferred guest, as he shows his passport. And remember, this is the exact same passport that Sayid sees in Ben's secret room. He asks if it's 2005, she says yes, and he smiles. Then Ben sees Sayid on the TV, and Sayid says he just wants to bury his wife in peace. The TV reporter in Arabic says, one of Iraq's damaged sons, and in addition to the horrific conditions he was in after his return, Sayid Jarrah, one of the Oceanic Six, went to Baghdad after the murder of his wife. Back at the barracks, Locke asks Ben why Ben needs him to survive. Ben says because only Jacob can help us and we need to go to him together. Locke says he doesn't even know where the cabin is, but Ben says Hurley does. And Sawyer eventually finds Claire alive and takes her to Ben's house. I don't think Claire's going to be dying in the immediate future. If you think about it, the RPG was shot at her house, and it topples down on her, and she survives without any injuries, really. So I think the island has a plan for her, and until then, she can't die. Ben doesn't want Hurley to open the door, but Hurley throws a chair through the window anyways to let them in. Then Miles rings the front door and brings in a walkie-talkie and says, they want to talk to you. We go to Iraq, where Nadia's funeral is taking place. Apparently every woman Sayid gets close to dies. Ben goes to a rooftop and starts taking pictures of a man. Then he takes a picture of Sayid, and somehow Sayid turns his head completely around and looks directly up at Ben. Ben tries to hurry away, but Sayid tackles him. Sayid's a pretty good tackler. Maybe one of his flashbacks will see him being a defensive end for the Patriots. Sayid realizes that it's Ben and asks, why are you here? And Ben responds with, to find the man who murdered your wife. Sayid asks how he got off the island, and Ben says, I used Desmond's boat to get to Fiji. It was pretty obvious here that Ben was lying to Sayid, saying that he took the Elizabeth or Desmond's boat to Fiji. He probably didn't feel too comfortable telling Sayid that he just teleported or time traveled to the desert. Ben then tells Sayid that the man he was taking pictures of murdered Nadia. Back on the island, Miles tells Ben that they have a hostage, and Ben lets us know that every single person is willing to die in service to the island. But Miles says, it's your daughter. He talks to Kimi on the walkie, and Kimi tells him to look out the window. Ben knows everything about Kimi and mentions how he knows about him in Uganda, which I'm sure we'll find out about later. Kimi then calls over Alex and puts a gun to her head, telling Ben that if you don't come out here, I'm going to kill your daughter. She begs for him and cries for him, and he says she's not his daughter. He stole her from a crazy lady when she was a baby. She's just a pawn, and she means nothing to him. And big bad Kimi pops her in the back of the head. Ben's devastated and can't believe that he just shot her. It just makes me wonder how much different things would be if Naomi wasn't killed by Locke. We know that she was Kimi's boss and hired by Matthew Abaddon and assembled the attack squad. We can't be sure that Kimi followed the exact orders of Naomi and the plans she laid out. We know from Miles that Widmore's employees can freelance with the best of them. And so I'm thinking later we'll find out that Kimi was unaware that he was supposed to do that, or wasn't supposed to kill Alex, and that he'll get in trouble by Widmore or be killed by Ben, which I'm thinking will happen.